I spent 21 days in complete darkness. My brain invented its own light. I need to tell you what light actually is before I tell you what happened when I took it away, not the physics. You know the physics. I mean what light is to the brain. The brain uses light to know when it is, not where, when. It is the primary signal the human brain uses to anchor itself in time. Remove it entirely, and the brain does not simply go dark. It loses its grip on time itself. And a brain that has lost its grip on time will do something I did not fully believe until it happened to me. It will make its own light. The theory. There is a phenomenon documented in cave research called phosphene generation. In complete and total darkness, sustained over time, the visual cortex does not go quiet. It continues generating visual signal. With no external input to process, it begins processing itself. It produces light where there is none, not metaphorically, neurologically. People in total darkness report seeing geometric patterns, moving shapes, colors. And eventually, in sustained cases, fully formed scenes. Dreams inserted into waking consciousness. A person awake, aware, standing in a room that is completely and physically dark, seeing things that are not there, generated entirely by their own brain, with a fidelity indistinguishable from real perception. A researcher explained this to me at a conference. She said the visual cortex is one of the most energetically expensive regions of the brain. It does not power down when deprived of input. It looks for something to do. And when it cannot find anything external to process, it turns inward and begins generating experience from nothing. I asked her how long it took. She said it varied. Days, in some cases. She said, "Make sure someone knows where you are." I did not understand why she said that until day 11. The setup. The room was my own basement. I had spent 2 weeks sealing it. Electrical tape over every LED, blackout material over the single window, a door seal so complete that not even the hallway gap leaked through. I tested it for 2 hours beforehand, sitting in the sealed room with my eyes open, seeing nothing. Not dim shapes, not outlines, nothing. The kind of dark that makes you reach your hand toward your own face just to feel the air move. That test was the last time I saw anything for 21 days. No phone, no torch, a battery speaker loaded with music and audiobooks, randomized, no timestamps, so I couldn't use content to track time, food and water in fixed positions, a rope guide from the bed to the bathroom, a panic button wired to a bell outside. My friend would ring a bell at 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. every day, not to speak. Just two anchors in what I was about to discover was a much less stable landscape than I had assumed. I went in on a Thursday morning. The last thing I saw was my own hand pulling the door shut. Days 1 through 3. Day 1 was manageable. It had the quality of a thing you chose, and the choosing gave it a frame. What I had not anticipated was how immediately the other senses expanded. Sound became enormous. The hum of pipes, the settling of the house, the distant suggestion of traffic. I became aware of the smell of the basement in a way I never had in 20 years of living above it. With nothing for my eyes to do, everything else leaned forward. By day 2, time had already begun to behave strangely. Not thick the way it had during the sleep experiment. Uncertain. I could not locate myself within the interval between bells. I was present in a moment, but the moment had no address. Day 3. The first light appeared. A slow pulse of dim green at the edge of my visual field. Gone the moment I turned toward it. I noted it in my audio journal. I said, "I think it is starting." Days 3 through 7. The phosphenes developed over the following 4 days like a language the brain was teaching itself. First came pulses. Slow, rhythmic, colors I hadn't asked for. Green, then amber, then a blue so specific I wanted to give it a name. Then geometry. By day 5, the pulses had organized into patterns, grids, spirals, tessellations that shifted and reformed in the dark in front of my open eyes. Not threatening, almost beautiful, the brain making order from its own static. By day 6, the patterns had begun to move with intention, not random drift, evolution, as if unfolding toward something. I knew I was producing all of it. I knew the room was dark. This awareness did not diminish the experience at all. It sat alongside it, observing, the way you can know you are dreaming and still be fully inside the dream. Day 7. I counted the interval between 2 bells and estimated 14 hours. The bells were 12 hours apart. My grip on when had begun to loosen. Days 7 through 14, around day 9, the light graduated from geometry to scene. Not a full scene. Fragments. The corner of a room I recognized. A specific quality of afternoon light. Late autumn amber. A particular slant that appeared in my visual field with enough fidelity that for a moment I reached toward the window it implied. There was no window. My hand touched the wall. I stood there with my hand flat against the wall in the dark and understood, in a way that reading about phosphenes had not given me, what the researcher had meant. The brain rewrites the rules of what it will accept as real. By day 10, the scenes had become coherent. A street I know, the texture of a particular urban evening, light on wet pavement after rain, the amber of a lit window seen from outside. My brain was rendering this from memory and inserting it into the darkness with a fidelity my waking consciousness could not argue with. I want to be careful about what I claim here. I was not confused. I knew these images were generated, but knowing something is generated does not make it less present. The wet pavement was present in exactly the way a real perception is present. Same cognitive space, same emotional weight. The emotion is what I had not anticipated. The scenes were not random. They were not nightmares. They were specific. The visual grammar of things I love, places I have been happy, light I have found beautiful. The brain, building light from scratch, chose to build the light it missed most. Day 11. I understood why she had said, "Make sure someone knows where you are." Not because I was in danger, because the line between generated and perceived had begun to blur in a way that was not frightening. It was something quieter and more fundamental. The discovery that the boundary between experience and reality is not a wall. It is a practice. A continuous act the brain performs using light and time as reference points. Remove those reference points and the practice becomes effortful, then unreliable. Day 14. The bells came. I could not tell whether it was the morning bell or the evening bell. Both were just bells now, arriving in the dark. I recorded a journal entry. I said, "I don't know when I am." The final week. Something changed in the last 7 days. The light had become constant. Not bright, more like the quality just before dawn, when darkness begins to thin but the sun hasn't appeared. A diffuse, sourceless illumination my visual cortex was sustaining continuously, as if it had decided the absence of light was a permanent problem requiring a permanent solution. I stopped arguing with it. The brain needed light. The brain was providing light. Arguing felt like arguing with a heartbeat. Day 16. The realization that changed everything. I had assumed going in that this experiment was about deprivation, about absence, about what happens when you take something away. That framing was wrong. This was not about what the brain does without light. It was about what the brain does instead. The brain does not experience the absence of light as absence. It experiences it as a problem to solve, and it solves it. Imperfectly, with the materials available, memory, pattern, the visual residue of a lifetime of seeing, but it solves it. The brain, denied its primary input, does not shut the system down. It runs the system on a different fuel. This is not a small thing. This means the brain's relationship with reality is not passive. It is not a recorder. It is a generator, producing experience continuously, using the external world as its primary source, but not its only one. The external world keeps the generation calibrated. Without it, the generation continues. It just loses its calibration. What I was seeing in that dark room was my brain uncalibrated, running on its own, making experience from what it had available, and what it chose, consistently, to build from, was the most beautiful things it had ever seen. Day 18. I lay on the bed and watched my visual cortex render a coastline at sunset. A specific one, from a specific day, the colors exactly right, the quality of light exactly right in every detail I could name, in every detail I couldn't. I thought, the brain has been holding all of this, every piece of beautiful light it has ever encountered, stored somewhere, waiting. We carry so much more than we know. Day 21. Thursday morning, 3 weeks to the day. I walked to the door in the dark. My hand found the handle. I opened it. The light from the hallway, a single ordinary overhead bulb, the most mundane light source imaginable, hit my eyes and I stopped moving. I stood in the doorway for a long time. It was not the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. That framing is too easy. What it was real, unambiguously, externally real, light that existed independent of my brain's need for it, light that would have been there whether I was there or not. After 21 days of light, my brain had made for itself the experience of light that simply existed, that required nothing from me, was something I don't have the precise word for. The closest I can get is witnessed. I sat down on the hallway floor. My friend was there with coffee. She asked how I was. I said, I had no idea how much I was making up. She said, what do you mean? I said, everything. All of it. The whole time. I just didn't know it until I ran out of material. What I know now, the phosphenes faded within 3 days of leaving the room. My vision normalized within 48 hours. What has not faded is the understanding. The brain is a generator. It produces experience continuously, using the world as its primary source and its own memory as its backup. Most of the time, the external input is so dominant we never notice the generation. We think we are simply seeing what is there. We are not simply seeing what is there. We are seeing what is there processed through a system that is constantly predicting, filling gaps, constructing the present from a combination of current input and stored pattern. The external world keeps this honest. It is the anchor. Remove it, and the generation continues. It just runs on whatever it has left. In that room, I watched it run on whatever it had left for 21 days. And what it reached for, every time, without exception, was light. The specific amber of a particular afternoon. The color of a coastline at a particular hour. The lit window of a city seen from outside on a night that mattered. The brain, stripped of everything, builds beauty from memory. I think about that every time I watch the light change, which is every day now, every single day.